Hello friends, welcome to Simply Clouded. Today we're going to learn how to set up Jenkins on a Docker container based on a Linux operating system. The only prerequisite that you need to follow before following this tutorial is installing Docker on your virtual machine. It's a simple step-by-step guide and I'll leave the link in the description of this video. Let's go to our virtual machine and see if the Docker is running properly. A simple command to check if the Docker service is running is systemctl status docker. Notice that the Docker is running fine. The next step is to pull the Jenkins image from Docker Hub. Notice that when you install Docker on your virtual machine, you'll also be linking it to the Docker Hub so that you can pull repositories. So the first step that the Jenkins does or the Docker does is look for that image locally. If it's not able to find the image locally, it pulls it from the Docker Hub. Now I can explicitly go and pull the image, but if I directly run the command, which is the Docker run command, it will pull the image automatically. Let's go ahead and let's pull the Docker image Jenkins/Jenkins, which is available on Docker Hub, which is the official Jenkins image provided by Docker. Now, notice that it has started downloading the image locally. Meanwhile, let's understand our run command and how it works. The first thing is Docker run. So Docker is the keyword that goes along with every Docker command. The run command is used to run or spin up new containers. -D is to run this entire process at the back end. -P is for port binding, when I'm binding the port 8080 with the local port 8080. I'm also binding the port 50,000 with the local port 50,000, which means the port on the container is binded with a local port on the operating system. -V, when you want to have the data in your Jenkins or whatever container that you run persists after the container is deleted and a new container is launched, you create a persistent volume. Right now, we're creating a local volume called Jenkins_home and mapping it to a directory inside your container. Then we pass the image that we want to use and the version. LTS by default means the latest version. Let's see if we have our image downloaded. So we do have our image, and the simple command to check if we have our image in place is docker image ls. Notice that we have the latest Docker Jenkins image available. Now, let's run the run command to spin up a Jenkins container. Now we'll run this command and this command will look for the image, and this time it will find it locally, so it will be able to run the container. Notice that it says unable to find image locally. Now, when it tries to find it, most of the packages already exist. But since we gave an explicit tag, it downloads whatever dependencies are still required locally. I'm going to pause the video until the download completes and gonna come back. Okay, we're back and the download is complete. Now, ideally, Docker has spun up a Jenkins container, which means our application is ready to use. To check if the Docker process is running or is alive, the simple command is docker ps. If you see, the Docker container has been launched 22 seconds ago, which means it has been up for 22 seconds now. You also see that the local port 8080 is bounded with port 8080 of the Jenkins container. Same as with port 50,000. Now, just to see if our Jenkins application is running fine, I will check the IP address of my local machine. I will use this IP address with port 8080, which is my local port, to check if I'm able to access this application. I will now go over to the browser and I will simply write this IP address along with port 8080. Let's try to see if our application is up and running or not. You see, this is how we launch Jenkins and we go to the Jenkins main page. Next step for us is to find the administrator password. The next step for us is to retrieve this administrator password so that we can go on and configure our Jenkins. Now, since we ran our process in the backend, we don't know the console output on the screen itself. So to retrieve the password, we'll go to the location mentioned here. Now, since we launched our Jenkins on a Docker container, it means that this file is not going to be present on my local system. So we'll have to take a look inside or a peek inside your Docker container. So the simple command is docker ps, which will give me the container ID. Then the next command is docker exec, which means execute -it, which is the interactive shell. And then we give the container ID and the shell, which we are going to use to access this container. Notice that we are inside this container. If you see, everything is related to Jenkins. As you all know, containers are just a wrap-up of an application and its kernel related dependencies. So there's not much flexibility of what you can do here, but you can certainly do everything related to Jenkins. Now, since Jenkins tells us that you need to go to this location to find the admin password, we'll just do a cat to this location and we simply get the admin password. We'll go back to our Jenkins, we'll pass the admin password and we'll click on continue. It launches the customized Jenkins page where it asks you to install suggested plugins. For those of you who've used Jenkins, Jenkins is nothing but without plugins. So there's plugins for everything, for credentials, especially with different multi-cloud architectures or DevOps tools and various configuration management tools. So we'll come back once the suggested plugins have been installed, and then we'll continue setting up our Jenkins. I'm back, guys. So as soon as all the plugins which are suggested by Jenkins are installed, it directly navigates to this page. The plugins took around 20 minutes to get installed, and immediately the first user is set up. I will set it up as admin for now, and I will save and continue. Okay, you need to pass an email address. I'll pass my personal email address, save and continue. It will give me a location and a Jenkins URL. If you have a DNS configured, you can give a custom URL here. I'm going ahead with the IP address itself. And now I go to the home page of Jenkins, where I can start building my pipeline. Next time, if I log out, I can just use the admin credentials that I just configured to access a Jenkins portal. Notice one more thing, that if I want that this particular Jenkins Docker container stays alive even after the server is rebooted, we need to execute another command. This command is docker update restart unless stopped, and then we pass the the container ID. How do we find the container ID? By doing docker ps. So we'll take the container ID, we'll copy it instead of the container ID here, and then we'll take this command, we'll paste it. And now the Docker setting of what happens with the container once the server is restarted is set to never ever stop unless stopped explicitly. So whenever you reboot, your Jenkins will come up on its own. That's it, guys. Look out for more videos on Jenkins and how to configure and create your first pipeline. Thank you.
Thank you for watching. Please like, share and subscribe for more such videos at Simply Clouded. To subscribe our channel, please hit the bell icon at the bottom.